Okay, welcome to Teach Online TV. My name is Tyler Basu, and I'm here with Jonathan Levi, who is a serial entrepreneur and an online course creator. In fact, he's got one of Thinkific's most successful online schools, the Super Learner Academy. We're constantly pointing people to his site as an example of a very good course site. And he's got lots of students in his courses as well, tens of thousands, in fact, from all over the world. So Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. And I'm excited to learn about your journey as a course creator.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a total pleasure. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Thinkific. I refer everybody to you guys, so I'm really excited to know that you guys are also a fan of ours.
Now, Jonathan, I read up on you a little bit, and it looks like you've been doing a lot of things over the past decade or so, from e-commerce, retail, software. I think I called you a serial entrepreneur, which seems to be pretty accurate. But how did you get into creating courses? Like, at what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to share some of your knowledge, and why did you specifically choose to create courses?
Yeah, so I got into online courses really as a side thing. I had left business school and I was working on this startup idea, and it kind of wasn't going anywhere. And I decided to change locations and drop this startup idea and kind of look for new things. I had sold a company previously, so I wasn't in dire straits, but I did want to have some income coming in from the side to cover my living expenses so that I could kind of mill around and look for that next big opportunity. As you said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've never actually had a real job, and I wasn't fixing to start. And at the time I was about 24, 25, and said to myself, well, hey, a lot of people have asked me over the recent years about the speed reading thing that I studied, on my own, and about all these memory techniques that I'm always using. And I had taken, as part of this whole startup adventure, I had taken a course from Matan Griffel on Udemy. And it was all about kind of growth hacking and stuff like that. And I'd taken another one of his courses. He had then gone on to do his own platform called 1 Month, which now those guys are good friends of mine. And I consider them to be kind of thought leaders in the online course space. But I saw that and I was like, wow, they built a whole business around basically starting in one small marketplace website and then creating their own. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. What if I were to do like a 1 month speed reading course instead of 1 month Ruby on Rails? I decided they probably wouldn't appreciate the homage. This was before they were friends of mine. So I decided just to come up with names, and I have a little bit of a background in marketing, given that I'd had companies before and created product lines before. So I did a little bit of market research as any kind of good entrepreneur. I reached out to kind of my target market, talked to people, saw what their concerns were. And then I took the skills that I teach every day, which is accelerated learning, speed reading, and memory. And I was like, okay, let me open up a bunch of browser tabs here and figure out what this online course thing is about. Like, what does it actually take to create successful online courses? How do marketplaces work? How do you beat the algorithms to be the top ranking? What is good pedagogical design? I remember I opened like 45 tabs and I just read everything there was to know about, at the time, online courses.
This was in
2012.
Okay.
Sorry, 2000. It was October 2011. And we came out with the course on December 26th, which turns out to be a really significant date in our company. But on December 26th, 2011. And I mean, lo and behold, all the speed reading that I'd done and all the kind of learning that I'd done worked. And we ended up being one of the top courses on Udemy within 30 days. And so when I started, I was like, if I could just make $1,000 a month, that's enough for me to live in this shared bedroom that I'm living in Tel Aviv, and it would be amazing. And I remember I hit publish, and then I went on a ski trip, and it was in January, and I was in Switzerland with some friends, and I happened to get to Wi-Fi, and I looked on my phone, and I was like, oh crap, like, we already made $2,000.
No way.
That's pretty crazy. I remember in the first 4 days we made $500. I was like, that's pretty good. But launch bubble. So fast forward, we kind of grew our audience very organically on Udemy. And for a long time, this was just a side project for me. And I was flying back and forth to East Africa and looking at opportunities to kind of serve the developing world with some different tech solutions. And I was volunteering at different startups, and it just gave me the freedom to work on things that maybe I wouldn't have worked on if I didn't have, a few $1,000s coming in a month.
Right.
And then it just grew and it grew and it grew. And then people started demanding a podcast. And then they started saying, well, why don't you have a book? Why haven't you written a book? Okay. So we did a book, and then we did another course, and then we did a podcast. And at some point, a good friend of mine, Dr. Anthony Metivier, and I were doing a course And he said something along the lines of like, yeah, but that's just Udemy. I was like, we both teach on Udemy. And at the time I'm making, pretty significant amount of money. I'm like, what do you mean just Udemy? Udemy's the big kahuna in the online course space. And he goes, well, how much do I won't give specific numbers, but he goes, how much do you think my own website makes in relation to Udemy? And I go, well, come on, how many people actually buy, a $400 course? And he gives me the number and my jaw just drops. And my initial response is, well, I don't need that. I don't want to do that. This isn't, about money for me and whatnot. But then it started to grind on me, like all these little things that you can't do when someone pays $10 for a course. You can't fly around the world to interview an expert because that doesn't really fit into the model. And it kind of started grinding on me. I was like, what if I could offer a no holds barred, ultra premium course where if tomorrow, like one of the world's experts tells me that I can interview him for thousands of dollars, I say yes, because it's worth it. Or if tomorrow I need to hire a new staff member to help me do customer service because we want 24-hour premium service, I can do it. Well, lo and behold, interestingly enough, December 26th of 2015, we launched a masterclass on Thinkific. And you guys did something very, very smart. And stop me if at any point you want to dig deeper, but
I'm enjoying
I'm kind
this.
of a storyteller.
Just keep telling the story. Keep telling the story.
So, and I've never told the story exactly like this, but you learn about, this is another thing that I've studied along the way, is copywriting and creative storytelling. So we launched this masterclass. At the same time, we launched an upgraded, improved, professionally recorded, not webcam recorded version of our 2.0 course. And it's this big marketing push. And Thinkific had done something very, very smart. I mean, we surveyed the market anyway, but years before we were ready, you guys were like, hey, can we migrate your course so you'll have your own white label? I was like, yeah, all right, cool. If it doesn't cost me anything, do it. So we already had a Thinkific account set up that I think only ever sold one copy because some guy was like, I refuse to do business with Udemy. I was like, okay, cool. Here's a link. So it was all set up. Everything was great. It was awesome to set up. There were kinks and bugs that I think since you guys have sorted out, and different features that we wanted that you guys have been really good about implementing. And there's still stuff that we want to do that I think we're avant-garde in and kind of nudging you guys. But in short, it kind of churned along, and then Udemy had this huge crash when they changed their pricing model. And suddenly it went from being 25% of our business, this Thinkific website, our own premium academy, to being 50. And that was meaningful. And so we've doubled down kind of to get away from the kind of specifics. And also because I think the more recent stuff we'll get into in a different question, but it's now, we far outpace our Udemy sales with Thinkific. We have dedicated people for marketing and advertising separately. And we've hired a full-time video editor. I mean, we've got like a proper business, and it's all around, the majority of it, at least 60% at this point, is revenues from our ultra premium stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks for telling the story. So just to recap, it was back in about 2011, 2012, you decided to create your own course. Having a bit of an entrepreneurial background and a marketing background, you knew to do some marketing research on the topic. You talked to your target audience. These are really important steps we always tell people to do. You made your first course, put it on Udemy, which is a marketplace. Lots of inexpensive courses there, but big audience that you had access to. And so you built up a bit of an audience there by putting courses there. You even made some money as well. And then I guess about almost a year ago now is when they did that pricing change. Right. I remember because we did a blog post on what happened with their pricing change and how people could use still put courses on Udemy, but also leverage that exposure to help build their brands and things like that. And that to this day, that's one of our most popular blog posts, because I guess a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to build their businesses using Udemy and dealing with that price change. So you made the shift from, you're still teaching on Udemy, correct? You still have some courses there?
Yeah, we still have one of the top courses on there, actually. Cool. But we view it as, and it's interesting, my colleague and I, Anthony, after I kind of got the punchline and realized like how smart it was what he was doing, and he realized how smart it was what I was doing in some other avenues of my business, we built a course around this. And at the time, it didn't really talk about the premium level. Like it talked about how do you connect Udemy to a podcast, to a book, and how do you have a multi-channel content marketing kind of ecosystem. And we're now in the process of updating it. So we're building like a 20 course suite, which goes into the next level strategy. Like how do you upsell people from Udemy to Thinkific when it's like 25 times the price? And how do you get people off the podcast and onto the website? How do you manage the mailing list? How do you write copy when you don't have Udemy driving ads for you? And how do you do your ads and all that kind of stuff? So we're building that. And that's been, the product of years and years of us learning and kind of figuring out how that goes. But that's exactly it is we now see, my company and also Anthony's company we see all these things as top end of the funnel. Right. So I get you into my ecosystem as opposed to just ads. I'll bring you in via ads, via podcast, via book, via blog, via, Audible, Amazon, or via Udemy. And it's a great way to qualify buyers. And instead of paying for leads, I'm getting paid for leads. And there are a lot of strategies and kind of innovations that I've worked on and kind of, again, this is the beauty when budget is no longer an issue because you're selling premium level courses, you can afford to fly to San Francisco, sit down with Udemy and be like, hey, here are the rules that you guys have specified. Like, here's what I want to do. And just sit with them and say like, all right, podcast episodes, like, where's that line? How can I market this? Am I allowed to do that? And really hash out and innovate in some ways, different white hat strategies to upsell people in an environment where upsells are not strictly speaking allowed. And I think that's in my mom, he works with a lot of clients who do what I do. And he's like, your business is completely different from every other client I work with because the amount of warm traffic that we drive is phenomenal. I mean, we put out a podcast episode every week. We just crossed 1.2 million downloads on that. Our Udemy courses have 81,000 people. Our book, I don't even know how many downloads. So if there's anything really to be learned from what I do, it's to have tiers in your funnel. And then I'm all for hedgehog concept. I'm all for focus, but I think that it makes a lot of sense to have people come in at entry levels of the product. And if you look at guys like Tim Ferriss or Lewis Howes, they're doing the exact same thing. They have the free tier, which is weekly podcast episodes. They have the cheap tier, which is their books, $4.99, $9.99, whatever. And then, in the case of Tim and Lewis, they skip directly. But in the case of a lot of other guys like JLD, John Lee Dumas, they jump up to the 500 or the 2000 and stuff like that. And I think, it's basic microeconomics, right? It's try to capture willingness to pay at any possible place.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So you've got quite a few different channels set up. You've got the podcast, the blog, the books, courses on Udemy, which I guess are more like introductory or shorter versions of your premium stuff that you've got on Thinkific.
In a sense, yeah, they're lighter versions. I think if I made any mistake in this whole launch, it's that I gave away way too much in my Udemy 2.0 version. And that was because I was embarrassed by the first version. It was recorded with a webcam and a blanket taped on the background. I'm a big fan of the MVP, the minimum viable product. So I did that. And the microphone was my MacBook with a towel over it to try and reduce echo. As you can see today, I've invested much more in kind of audio quality, but I was embarrassed. So I really wanted to incentivize people to upgrade. And Udemy obviously has a lifetime access, lifetime updates thing. So for kind of the moral, ethical component, it needed to not be a redo, exactly the same content, just higher quality audio. Cause that I would feel I need to give away for free. It needed to be 50% more content plus better audio, plus improvements, plus new worksheets. And so what that did is kind of bring the Udemy new and renovated version a little bit too close for comfort to the masterclass. The benefit of doing that is it has pushed me over the last year and a half to just go all out. I mean, like the stuff that we're doing in the masterclass to now raise that value is unprecedented. Like last week, we had a full 3D rendering mock-up created of a real life memory palace that I use. And I walk people through, and this is like a masterclass exclusive. I walk people through a virtual reality tour of this memory palace and help them store the different mnemonic techniques along the way. And nobody's doing that, right? In my industry, it's like actually taking it to the next level, like beyond the videos, beyond the PowerPoints of virtual reality. And so we do anything we can in the masterclass to really provide as much value as possible to the student.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you bring up a really good point, going back to creating your first course, that you were embarrassed by it. It was good enough at the time, or it was the best you could do at the time. But then looking back, you were embarrassed by it. Minimum viable product or minimum viable course, you might say.
Totally.
But I think that's where a lot of us start, right? Our first course is not perfect. I think if we try to make our first course perfect, we might never get around to finishing the thing. I think it's more important to just get something out there, get some feedback, get some students, get some practice.
Get some validation.
How has your course, yes, and some validation, that's very important. But how has your course creation process evolved since then? I mean, you've gotten a lot better. I see a nice studio set up behind you there. But what are some of the ways, if with your most recent courses, and if you were to start working on a course tomorrow, let's say, what types of training might be involved and what types of equipment might you be using?
Sure. So what's funny is the content creation process has not changed at all. I still write an outline. I sit down, write a bare bones outline. I actually just write titles so that it's my belief, Tyler, that people can learn anything online for free. I think you can learn anything on YouTube. You can learn everything I teach on YouTube. So why do people pay me hundreds of dollars? Because I craft a learning journey and I take the guesswork out of learning, and I obviously take some investment in their success, and I give them one-on-one, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually not the learning, it's the environment that people are paying for. And I know this. And so I very deliberately craft structured learning journeys that build on themselves, because the number one most frustrating thing for my students is, okay, what do I do now? So anytime a student asks me, what do I do now? That's a failure of my product. So that has not changed at all. I write an outline and then I write lecture by lecture by lecture, one by one. I have a lot of techniques that I use to make my content evergreen and modifiable and modular. Everything else has changed. So the first stages, the second course I did, I hired someone to film and I used a professional studio. So that's a huge jump in quality and a huge jump in just kind of, I would say user experience, and also like my peace of mind. The next course I did, I hired someone to film and edit. And that was the next jump, a freelancer to film in studio, blah, 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 blah. And we kind of went up and up and up and up and up and up. Now I've gone all the way to the other extreme, which is ready plug and play studio. As you can see behind me, everything is configured in such a way that like down to the millimeter, the microphone never moves. The lighting never changes. The room is acoustically sealed. So all the windows are triple glazed and everything. So I have that level of consistency. And then we've hired a full-time video editor as well. We have standards, procedures. So all of our titles, we have the colors specified, the time specified, different camera angles. And we go all the way out to make everything smooth. So we record in 4K so that anytime I make a mistake, we can cut camera angles or make it seem like we cut camera angles. We have specialized processes for how we do revisions. We use different collaborative softwares. As far as equipment, what do we use? I actually don't recommend the camera that we use. We use a JVC HM170. I wish that we'd gotten the 250 because it automatically connects to Wi-Fi. So if anyone out there, it's this like big 4K, it's behind me, kind of locked against the wall, but it's this big 4K camcorder. I found it to be a little bit easier than using DSLRs, but if someone wants to use this for stills as well, DSLRs are great. We use a teleprompter from Interact Media. And then for microphones, we use a Sennheiser MKE 888, I believe, or the 666. We use one of the Sennheiser shotguns. I used to record with lav mics, and I just find them to be a pain in the butt. In terms of if you want to make gestures, if you're talking and you want to kind of like touch your heart and say, I personally, which I think is a trust building gesture. And then for lights, we have a bunch of LED panels and stuff like that. Acoustic treatment, you can see we have all this foam, and that's it. We record in widescreen now, but we're working on green screen. I have more LED panels coming in the next couple of weeks so that we can record green screen. And then backgrounds can change and we can do really, really cool stuff. Our video editor is like a complete rock star and can just do stuff that I didn't know you could do, to be honest with you. So
cool.
Yeah.
And you've worked your way up to this level. I mean, it's a very, very professional standard that you've got now, but I just want people to realize that's what you worked up to. You know, you didn't create your first course having this whole,
I always tell people, like, if you're not going to make this a full-time job, and part of the reason I built this is to motivate myself to create new content, because we're kind of at the point, like our marketing machine, if you will, is in such a way that we don't actually have to roll out new content anymore. But I want to, because I feel like I have an obligation, and I feel like it's the right thing to do, even if it's just free content on YouTube. Yeah. And so I knew that by building this thing and sinking tons of cash into it, that I would feel the drive. And, you know, as we speak, we're writing 2 new courses and stuff like that. But at the starting level, I would encourage people, find a local studio. I was paying $500 a day for full day recording. And then, you know, you get a college student or something to bring their camera, record for you, because the level, like I'm a speed reading and learning expert, and like the level of knowledge that you have to overcome in terms of, like, does your skin tone work better with tungsten lamps or, you know, daylight lamps or LEDs? And don't ever let anyone light your face with anything but Kinos. And what's your white belt? All that stuff's crazy. It's like people study 4 years. The videographer that I used for the first few courses studied 4 years to learn this stuff. And it's kind of like, if you really want to maintain that level of quality and also just have like the peace of mind, especially when it comes to the editing. I mean, we do our courses in such a way that we have a lot of editing, animated titles and everything to emphasize every core point, images to emphasize everything that I talk about. So if I mention a book, we pop it up next to me, all that kind of stuff. And the sickest I've been in the last 5 years is when I tried to edit 2 different courses, because it's like the level of stress and the sitting and staring at the screen for 12 hours. It's just a nightmare.
Yes, I think a big takeaway there is get help when you need it. Like, recognize that as a course creator, your job is creating courses, finding ways to serve your students, delegate as much as you can. You can't become a master of everything.
Totally. And also, I think it's really important to note, like, why do we become entrepreneurs? There's a couple different reasons. Ultimately, it all boils down to freedom, right? To work on the things that we want to work on, that we think are important, to work when we want to work. So it's the how, it's the what, it's the why, right? And you don't become an entrepreneur to, like, pardon my expression, take shit and work on stuff that makes you miserable. If you want to work on stuff that makes you miserable, go get a day job, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur, take full advantage of the benefit and say, you know what? I freaking hate dealing with Facebook ads. So I'm going to pay someone, and I'm going to pay them $600 a month. And in the grand scheme of things, you know, I'm going to make sure that it's ROI positive, but it's not that much money. And I think that's like one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur, is getting to that point where you can, and we all do our first Facebook ads. We all do our first course. Like, you have to understand what the task is to be able to delegate it. But the minute that you're able to say, you know what, I don't like answering customer service emails, so I'm going to hire someone and they're going to do it for me, and they're going to do a better job than me. I think is just being a sound, smart entrepreneur, rather than being what my mother likes to call penny wise and pound foolish.
That's good advice. Well, Jonathan, you're sharing a lot of good stuff. Is it okay if I keep you for a couple more minutes? A few more questions for you?
Love to.
Cool. You mentioned the term marketing machine, which means you've got some things in place that are selling your courses on autopilot, you might say. So if you could just give us a quick overview of what you're doing to market your courses right now and to generate sales. And does a lot of it require your time, or is it some of it automated?
All automated. Cool. I'm the automation expert, right? I actually teach a course on automation and productivity as well. We bundle it with our Super Learner course, because a lot of people come to us and they're like, I don't have 30 minutes a day. That's why I need this course to read faster. I'm like, okay, cool. So we developed like a 4-hour crash course, goes through all the highlights of the productivity and the automation and everything.
Give
them
some extra time.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Give me 4 hours on a Sunday. One guy I interviewed, total tangent here, but I interviewed this guy last week because he wrote to me. He's like, dude, you changed my life. So he's working as a school administrator, and it was taking him about 10 hours a day to do his work. And he had like all these family issues with the wife, the kids, you know, who's that kind of situation. And he's like, he called me, he emailed me, because he's like, my work now takes 4 hours a day. Like, what do I do with the other 4 hours? I have to sit at work. I'm being paid hourly.
Yeah.
what do I do? And so we brainstormed some ideas for him. And I just thought that was so cool. Like, he's like, well, just one tip in the course took 2 hours off my day. I was like, that's amazing. Anyway, so yeah, everything we do in our marketing is all automated. I mean, I do need to write copy and stuff. Facebook ads go stale and stuff like that. But at the current iteration, and well, I want to back up and preface and say that it's taken us 2.5 years to get to this point of just iterating and trying things and, you know, hiring different people and stuff like that. So like, it's a lot to swallow. And that's partly why Anthony and I want to create this course to walk people through it. Cause I've spent tens of thousands of dollars getting it wrong. So don't be overwhelmed by how all this works. But basically, we have people coming in 5, 6, 10 different ways from 10 different places. They are all getting customized email drip campaigns. So if you sign up for a free trial, I'm going to encourage you every day to do this new task until day 7 or whatever, when it's time to pay. And then I'm going to offer you something or encourage you with something else. Every site of mine that you land on, every link, everywhere, you're getting pixeled and retargeted. So right now, the only ads we're doing are Facebook and Instagram. Those are almost exclusively driving to a webinar, which is a pre-recorded ever webinar, real comments taken from real webinars inserted in. So people feel like there's activity. We do read the comments, but I'm usually not in the room, and no one from our staff is in the room. And then it's offering a very special offer that only comes through the webinar to get a bundle deal package, so on and so forth. If you purchase live, you're getting some amazing extra bonuses. If you purchase within the first 48 hours, you're getting other less amazing, but still amazing bonuses. And then that's pretty much it. We're also, the drip campaigns and emails and stuff like that are going to continue. You're going to continue getting retargeted, until we've determined that really this isn't a good fit for you. But that's basically how the machine works. And yeah, it's been really, really successful for us in terms of ad spend to dollars earned. So,
yeah. Okay, cool. So you've got a lot of content out there, blog posts,
yes.
Podcasts, for example, that brings people to your website. Mm-hmm. You're retargeting them, running ads to those people who have then visited your website. So these are people that are somewhat familiar with your brand, right?
Yeah, we're also doing cold ads though. So we've recently started in the last 2 months doing cold ads. We're doing really, really well with lookalike audiences on Facebook. We have a professional doing our ads. So he's configuring all the audiences, he's churning the ads, he's monitoring the ad spend and optimizing to make sure that we're getting the best possible outcomes. But yeah, we've actually, because it's one thing to convert warm traffic of people who already know, like, and trust you. It's a whole other animal to take people who at 1:00 in the afternoon have never heard of you to by 3:00 in the afternoon paying hundreds of dollars for a program they never even knew existed. And and that was a huge gap to bridge for us, like a huge gap to bridge. But it was the difference between doing 5 figures a month and doing 5 figures a week or even 5 figures a day, is just getting out there, because our lookalike audiences are in the millions. And so we're very fortunate in that we teach something that many, many people want to know. So I will say, this is another instance where professional help can be really beneficial, because I personally hate this stuff. Like, I really don't like configuring ads. I love to write the copy. I don't mind writing the copy, but in terms of actually going into Facebook, managing, checking it, I'm getting like a chest compression just thinking about like the stress of, because we're also spending a lot of money on Facebook ads. And like, if something goes wrong, right, and you have like one thing misconfigured, Facebook will just take it and be like, yeah, this ad works, even if it doesn't convert in terms of actual sales, and just run with it. And it's your credit card on the line, and you can spend buku bucks on there and see none of it ever come back. So that's another example where it pays to have someone. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, another reason to have an expert handle that thing for you if that's not your expertise. Another thing I wanted to discuss was helping your students succeed. Now I know you've become really good at creating content that keeps people going through the lessons. Your courses are very organized and sequential, so people can follow that step by step. But is there anything else you're doing to help create that environment where to make sure they're absorbing the information and they're implementing the information? Like, have you got quizzes set up or discussions set up or private groups for your students? Anything to help with the retention and engagement?
Yeah. So it's interesting because on the one hand, so I have a couple different views before I go into what we're actually doing. On the one hand, I know, coming from kind of my background, that 27% of books that are read are actually open. So, 73% of books have never had the spine cracked. And so I try not to beat myself up if students buy the course, because I realize that sometimes students buy a course just for the hope. It's like an option. One day, if it ever gets this bad, I'll open this course. And I've done that a million times. I have 100 online courses that I've never opened. But obviously I want people to take the course because I believe in it and I believe that it changes people's lives. So we do a lot of different things. One, we do market to people after they bought the course. I check in with them. I send them automated emails saying like, hey, how's it going? Let me know if there's any problems. We do have worksheets. We do have a Facebook community. We have premium service and support. So in our masterclass level products, I personally answer the questions. And we have guides, quizzes, daily training logs, all kinds of different games that people are supposed to play. So it's really active, the learning experience. With that said, I view every question as a minor failure, right? So anytime a student has to ask a question, that means something is unclear in the course. And obviously every refund is a major failure for us. My whole model is built around automating absolutely everything. So if there's anything unclear, and this is why we're constantly revising our courses, constantly coming out with new versions. I'm even recording new lectures. So if 20 people ask me a question such as, hey, I'm stuck on this game, I'll come out with a new lecture that's called Why It's Important Not to Get Hung Up on the Games, and explaining like, hey, I want you guys to understand these games are useful activities, but they are not a supplement for real world practice. If you don't get along with the game, if you don't like the game, go out there and memorize 10 new people's names. Forget about this cheesy game, that we put in the course. And so we're constantly trying to just eliminate any form of friction for the student and make resources and information available to them. I don't offer one-on-one coaching because I don't believe in doing things that don't scale. And so having things that are unclear, that require a certain level of hands-on attention for every student, just doesn't fit into my mindset. And I view it as this student should be empowered to do far beyond what they imagined possible without me ever having to intervene. And if I have to intervene, it's because I screwed up. So.
Okay.
But we're also not selling a $3,500 course. If we were, then it would be expected for me to actually review the worksheets and stuff like that. So,
right, yeah. It's, the pricing that you choose for your courses has a big impact on what, how much time you can trade to help your students and what kind of support they receive and all that kind of stuff.
Precisely.
So as we wrap up here, because you've published courses on marketplaces, you've published courses on Thinkific, and when you made that decision to create courses on your own branded site, create your own online school, I'm sure you looked at a couple of other platforms. So what made you choose to put your courses on Thinkific, and what is it about Thinkific that's keeping you using the platform? Like, what do you like most about the platform?
Well, as I saw it, a lot of the other platforms out there weren't fully fleshed out. I looked at Fedora, which is now School Keep, or I don't even remember what they're actually called now, but they changed their name.
Teachable.
Teachable, yeah. School Keep is another one.
Right.
Teachable, and it looked like I would just need to do a lot of customization to do what I wanted. I like Thinkific because I call it the Shopify of online course platforms. It's like, it's limited, but it's limited in a good way. So it's kind of more like an iOS than it is an Android, in that there's not a whole hell of a lot of customization besides maybe the themes that you can do. And I think that's good because I come from a background, I had a business in e-commerce, right? And we were on OS Commerce and then we were on Magento, and it was just this big monster software that could be customized a million ways to Sunday. And I wish that we'd been on Shopify, which is just like, here's what you need. You don't need other shit. You can't modify this. You can't break it. And I think that's really great. So I look for those kinds of simple solutions. I love Thinkific because it integrates with a bunch of different stuff. It takes a lot of decision-making out that I don't want to be making. And it just works. It works really, really well. The uptime is really, really solid. And above all, really the support has been phenomenal. Sometimes it takes you guys a long time to integrate a new feature, but you actually integrate new features when I ask for them. We have, with our plan, we have pretty awesome support. We used to have a dedicated rep, but I think that changed. But we always get a response. We always get really, really great customer service. And even as you guys grow, even though I don't feel like it's me and Catherine was her name, and we had like a one-on-one contact, I still feel like you guys give a damn about me as a customer and work to constantly improve my experience and the experience of my students. So that's huge.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate that. Last question for you, Jonathan. Are there any words of encouragement or advice that you'd like to wrap up with and pass on to other online course creators as they're jumping into this world?
Yeah, I'll restate what I said before, not because I don't have something else that I'd love to share, but because I think it's so important it bears repeating. And that is, everything that you are teaching can be learned online for free. So figure out why someone would want to pay you to learn something that they can learn for free. And that can mean premium service and support. It can mean handholding. It can mean direction. It can mean innovation in the way that you teach it. That's our biggest value add, is we're the only one out there who's going to teach you the memory stuff in a way that enhances the speed reading, and the speed reading in a way that enhances the memory. So it can be value creation, but try to keep that in mind, because I think a lot of people come at it from the approach of, that they're offering something that people can't get anywhere. And that's kind of an attitude that's going to lead to students going, well, what am I really getting here? And so that's, I think, the most important thing. And then the second most important thing is just remember, just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come. So have a marketing plan in place. Do the market research to know that there are people out there who are going to pay for this stuff before you invest the time and the money and the effort. And know how you're going to reach those people, because I see it in the startup world all the time. These brilliant engineers who build an incredible piece of software that may or may not be better than anything else on the market. But if people don't know how to find your product, what good is it? And every entrepreneur out there has built a product that nobody's used. Don't be one of those entrepreneurs. So.
Yeah, for sure. Great advice. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. And if our audience wants to get in touch with you or check out your courses, learn more about what you're doing, where's the best place that we can direct them? Yeah, everything I do, from the blog, podcast, everything is listed at jle.vi. So johnle.v. And there's links to everything. If you guys want to check out, become a super learner, you want to see what we're doing. If you guys want to check out how our marketing funnels work, you can sign up there. You get a bunch of fascinating emails about Benjamin Franklin and about my personal stories. And yeah, they can check me out there for a list of all of it. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again, and we'll keep in touch. All right, take care, Tyler.